Let's do this. Good morning. Welcome. I'm Paul Bartholomew. I'm a development manager at Tableau, where I lead the formatting development team. Today, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce you to one of Tableau's newest Zen masters, David Murphy, better known online as Datasaurus Rex. Today, David will be giving a talk on Don't Fear the Data, how Tableau helped me excel. And yeah, I'm pretty sure the pun was intentional. Try not to hold it against him. David has contributed the Tableau Viz of the day on multiple occasions with work that is both serious and fun. For example, his Singapore dengue fever map, which was actually something of an homage to an earlier pioneer in this field, an outbreak of cholera in the 1850s that was solved by overlaying the outbreak data on top of a map of the wells of the region. An example of something a little bit more fun, and perhaps what he's best known for, is the Game of Thrones Death Dashboard, where he tells everybody exactly how all of the people in that popular HBO series have died. By the way, David, I hope you're keeping that up to date. The latter viz demonstrates something that is special about David. His insatiable curiosity and his ability to see data everywhere. David is constantly looking for ways to generate new insights, not just about data that have important real-world consequences, but also about data that are simply fun to explore. Who else would have decided to see if actor Sean Bean's characters really do die more often than his peers? A common internet meme, but it took David's Sean Bean survival calculator to figure out whether that was actually true. I'm not going to give it away. You'll need to actually go and find out. When David is not generating these vizzes, both trivial and important, he's updating his website, which I highly recommend, and his YouTube channel, which I also highly recommend. He has also contributed posts to the Tableau Public blog, as well as creating tutorials on various elements of Tableau, such as creating animations, making custom shapes, creating custom color palettes. Incidentally, my team owns custom color palettes, and we hope at some point to make David's tutorial obsolete. Until then, I highly recommend it. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming David Murphy.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Paul. Oh, hello. Is this on? Yep, you can hear me? Great. Well, yeah, thanks for coming in, guys. It's a great turnout. It's the biggest audience I've presented to, so hopefully I can do it justice. Yeah, so welcome. How awesome was that keynote, right? Like, so many cool things coming. I can't wait to throw billions of rows of data at Hyper. It's just going to be fun. But yeah, so today my talk is called Don't Fear the Data, How Tableau Helped Me Excel. And it's kind of aimed at people who are just using Tableau or thinking about it. And I want to take you on a journey my journey over like the last 10 years of how I kind of went from a very Excel spreadsheet dominated world in my work field to a Tableau one, and how that's helped me a lot. But more importantly, how you kind of have to pivot and change how you think about Tableau when you use it and don't treat it like Excel. So hopefully these things will help you and get through a lot quicker than my 10-year little journey there. So yeah, the agenda, we're going to talk about my time before Tableau and probably some of the pain points you might have experienced or are experiencing using other software spreadsheet packages. Then when I found Tableau, how it suddenly flipped all those pain points on their heads, and then allowed me to kind of just skyrocket my career and sort of passion for data. And which comes on to exploring. I want to kind of emphasize how you really shouldn't fear data. You should like relish it, even on known data sets. Just jump in, dive in, and explore. And you'll get so much out of it, not only for yourself, but for your companies. And again, looking at the keynote, there's a ton of new features from Tableau coming, which will just make that even easier, which is great. It'll be a bit of a live demo. I'm going to show you just quickly how I've made one of my Tableau Public dashboards. Won't go into super detail, but as you might notice down in the bottom right here, this presentation, a video of it, and all the links I reference, including my dashboards and visuals you'll see, will be in that blog post. So there's a little hyperlink which will be throughout the presentation. So no need to write anything down. I've got you covered. And I'm going to quickly talk about one other little concept I've kind of realized when you suddenly are liberated with all this analysis and a great data visualization tool is a little concept I've kind of hijacked called a lean dashboard. But you'll see coming up where you suddenly realize you're a user experience designer, not just an analyst. And then, as I assume quite a few of the audience members are either new or just thinking of getting into Tableau, I've got a little section on how to get started. But again, there's lots of links, lots of resources, so I'll go through it pretty quickly, but it's all there for you to check at your leisure. And just to kind of caveat, I'm going to talk more strategic stuff, like high-level things, so I'm not going to get into the weeds of every little thing I've done for every viz, especially when I show the live demo. But again, if you have any questions afterwards, give me a shout. But again, there's tutorials on each section in that post. Okay, so who am I? Before I go on, why am I talking to you today? Had a great intro from Paul there. But just for more backgrounds, I'm David Murphy. Nice to meet you. I'm very tall, 6'8", 2 meters tall, so very easy to spot if you want to say hi out and about these next few days. Also, I've worked for a lot of big companies with a lot of big data sets, and it's been great. Like, I've loved it. They were saying data is new oil, and it was definitely the case in these companies. So getting the most out of them and just diving into these data sets, new, unknown, and really getting the most out of them, I love that stuff. And I've been doing it for over 12 years now, and still doing it, so I must be doing something right. Equally, I've had work shown at the Sydney Opera House with TEDx Sydney, one of my videos, how I looked at the spoken words of all the TED Talks. That was kind of fun. And as mentioned, I've got a website and a YouTube channel where I'm just really passionate about data visualization and trying to make the whole topic a bit more fun and informative and accessible to everyone. It doesn't have to be a dry topic. Okay, so let's get into this before Tableau world. So if I want to kind of say that I was using Excel for like 5, 6, I think about 7 years, sorry. And I was really, really good with spreadsheets. Like, I could do a ton of stuff, do lots of macros, I could solve a lot of people's problems in the office. So much so that they called me a spreadsheet wizard in 2 different offices, unrelated jobs, which was kind of nice. But the thing is, I want to let you know, like, I'm not just drinking a Tableau Kool-Aid. I've come from this, like, painful spreadsheet world. And now that I've kind of come out of that and using Tableau, I see both sides. So that's why I want to kind of highlight some of the benefits of using Tableau along the way. It's not to say spreadsheet tools aren't bad. They're good for certain things, but there's a great article written by a Tableau employee called, I think, Excel, Great Hammer Lousy Screwdriver. So if you want to see the differences and what each one's good for, go check that out. But finally, I kind of got this nickname by helping people. People have problems, and I Google it. But no one else did that. I don't know why they wouldn't do that, but that's what I did. And I could often find the solution and help people out. So I like helping people, but it made me look good. But also I was building out this solutions repertoire. And then any new problem I encountered, I could kind of either have the solution already there or package things together and give a kind of hybrid solution. But so it's kind of like this is something I definitely recommend, and you'll see this coming from the Tableau thing too. Don't be afraid, just kind of dive in, try and solve problems, and you'll definitely benefit in the long term, like throughout your career by kind of doing this kind of stuff. But yeah. So the common challenges when you use spreadsheets, or what I faced at least, and I hope a lot of you can relate to this, in this before Tableau world, is I think 6 major things. First off, you'd fear change. Say, look, you build this great dashboard in Excel, and it's working, you finally got it to work, and then someone's like, oh, can we just move this column here? Or can we just add this? And immediately, like, oh, God, no, it's going to break all my equations, it's going to ruin all my cell references, I hate you, why are you asking for this change? And it shouldn't be like that, but you do fear it, even though it's a perfectly valid request from a user who wants to use your dashboard more and get more out of it, which is kind of counterintuitive when you're building stuff for the end user. You shouldn't resent them. Equally, because it was hard to change things, your design phases were locked in. I found myself updating things once a quarter at best, because if you kind of accommodated every tiny little change, you'd have like huge version control issues, and if you do one thing and it breaks, and then another thing comes on top of it, it just compounds and gets really bad. So you're kind of quite rigid, so that request you might get might not come in for like 3 months to a year, and that's not really good in the business world when there's a lot of real-time insights you could be having here. Also, it's slow. Like especially when you do use pivot tables, a million rows, so you're pushing it, but like often you'll see this, and Even though I photoshopped it, it still gives me shivers seeing this, right? Because like you've spent hours, it crashes, you've lost it, or you didn't save it, then you got to redo it again. And that's painful. And again, this is always kind of tension when you're like looking at data and it's just, ugh, I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, but equally, the tools are limiting what you do with your data. Like I said, Excel has like a million row, or just over a million row limitation. So that means you've already got to preempt and pre-aggregate your data when you're pulling it out. So suddenly I might have to go, oh, I want to pull out my data by month. But then suddenly if I see a trend in, say, January 2017, I don't have to go back and pull another query by day to pull it out. And it's just taking extra time, and it's not ideal for anyone. And you might not even do it if it takes too much time or too much hassle. And then you're missing out on these awesome insights. But then equally, because you're restricted and you kind of have to second guess what you can do with your tools and the data, you have to ask it closed questions. You have to kind of already know kind of what questions you're going to ask of the data before you pull it out. Whereas to me, I want to dive in, well, with some hypotheses, but I want to kind of go in with an open mind, but you can't do that with these kind of things, because you have to kind of go, right, I want to see, I don't know, revenue by state, by month, but there might be an insight with salespeople, but you haven't pulled that in, so you're going to miss that, and it's not, very conducive to free flow insights. And finally, this is a weird one. If you've overcome all of these other challenges, distribution becomes a huge pain in the butt, because you've now built this dashboard, everyone loves it, you've got it to work, and they want it every week, and you have to like download the data, update the spreadsheet, push it out, and then that's like a millstone around your neck. Every successful dashboard you build, you are getting weighed down with more and more dashboards to maintain, probably to the point where that's just all you're going to do. Update data, push it out. And ironically, I'm sure most of you have probably got an analyst in your title, and you're not an analyst anymore. You're just what I call a data monkey. You just cut and paste, push, and that's it. And you're not analyzing. So you're not realizing your true potential in your job. So with all of these things, like I said, you've got this tension, you're afraid of this data. Like it's hard enough handling data you're used to, but suddenly if someone gives you a new data set, you're just like, oh God, no, I don't have time for this, it's just too hard, or you're gonna have to spend a disproportionate amount of time mastering it, which shouldn't be the case, especially in our world where, and again, as we saw in the keynote, the amount of data coming our way is just gonna blow up massively. This shouldn't be a place, or it shouldn't be a mindset we have as more and more data comes our way. So let's go into an after Tableau world. And that happened to me when I discovered Tableau in about April 2010. Thanks. I was given it to use with this one data source in a company, and they were like, don't use it for anything else. Just we bought this, do it for that. It's a large data set. And I was like, well, hang on. What's this field here? It can connect all these data sources like CSV, Excel, SQL. And I was like, well, screw you guys. I'm going to learn this thing. And in lunch times, outside of work, I suddenly got more and more familiar with Tableau, and I started to realize, oh wow, this can do what I want to do with spreadsheet tools, but like in half the time. So as I kept progressing and migrating some of my dashboards and insights into this, I could do the same job in about 60% of the time. And thankfully, it didn't reduce my salary by 40%, which is good. It allowed me to learn and grow and do training and take on those extra cool tasks, which companies always have, all these extra projects. So it now freed me up to help the company even more by adopting this, the efficiencies inherently built inside the product, which is kind of cool. And it also, Tableau's a great tool. It has a lot of great things sort of baked in by default. They have a lot of great people working behind the scenes to make sure all the default settings and the user experience is very intuitive and very natural. But equally, if you've got a bit of gumption and a bit of this hacky problem-solving mindset like I showed you when I had with Excel, you can get a lot more out of it. You can kind of go behind the scenes, change some of the files, or use it in really obscure ways to get some really awesome results, which we'll see coming up in the next section. But with that, we suddenly can flip these kind of 6 bad things in this before Tableau world on their head. So suddenly, you're not fearing change. Like if someone goes, oh, I want this column here, or I want this extra thing here, or I want to move this table over here, you embrace it. You're like, that's easy. You can even do it in the same meeting. Like, what, you mean like this? I'm like, oh, no, I mean over there. And you're like, okay, done. Whereas that whole thing would have probably taken a week in Excel, and a lot of tears, if you have to move a table and break cell references and stuff. So this is great. You kind of embrace it, You're loving this. You're getting great user feedback on these dashboards, which will make them use it even more and keep them engaged. Because ultimately, and we'll come to another section later, anyone can build a dashboard, but if they're not engaging and people aren't using them, what's the point? So you suddenly start to realize that this now helps you make dashboards people want to use and engage with. And because of that, you can rapidly iterate. No longer are you stuck behind sort of 3-month to quarterly or annual report refreshes. You can just do them on the fly because they're so easy. And it's just intuitive. It's just drag and drop, WYSIWYG kind of stuff with the awesome Tableau interface. It's no longer a slow thing, especially with Hyper, which is great. Did anyone else get the reference? They were using Scooter. I love that band. It's awesome. Very good when you're analyzing. But essentially, it's fast. I was going to say it could handle hundreds of millions of rows. Now it can handle billions in the near future, which is great. And I think I've only made it Tableau crash on me once, is when I think I stuck about 1 billion rows through it, and it, timed out and crashed, which wasn't great. But that will go away with Hyper. Now it's intuitive. You don't have to learn coding, you don't have to kind of freak out about cell references and all these weird pivot table arrangements. It's intuitive. If someone comes to you and says, I want to see revenue by state, by month, they've literally described what you have to do in Tableau, right? You just drag the 3 pills into the right place, and boop, you've got it. And that just empowers a lot more people to get into this stuff. It's not just in the realms of coders and stuff like that. And more importantly, you can now explore your data with all of this. As I mentioned before, you just dive into new unknown data sets without this kind of fear. I'm always like, let me at it. This is great. I want to find new insights, figure out this data, make sense of it. And with Maestro, it seems like it's going to be even easier just to check integrity and all that stuff and merge data sets, which is great. And finally, distribution is easy now. Whether it's Tableau Online, Tableau Server, or Tableau Public for certain visuals, it's easy to distribute real-time, everyone's on the same page kind of reports. So it doesn't matter. As long as you set up the report right and the data's coming in, you can set up 5 or 5,000. You're now no longer a slave to updating these every week. You can just keep on building awesome products within your company and not feel like, oh God, if I make this other one, it's just going to be more time and I'm not actually doing anything apart from updating reports. So essentially, you're embracing the data. So we've gone from fearing the data to embracing the data. And I guess you wouldn't get all this stuff if you took that Excel mindset into Tableau. And I've seen far too many people, which is why I made this talk, do this. Either yourself or in a company, you see Tableau, you get excited, you start using it, but you just hit that little barrier. And then I've seen a lot of people just go back to what they know. And that might be Excel or Google Sheets and stuff like that. And it's so painful for me to watch, because I can see them struggling even with those spreadsheet tools, but if they're just willing to change how they approach Tableau and just put in extra effort, they can get so many benefits like I have from using this product. So this is kind of why I made this, because I keep seeing too many people just go back to what they know, which is easy, rather than just push through that slight little bit and get so many benefits. So in a kind of recap, most of the time we use data to get insights. And in the before Tableau way, the main limitation, I would argue, is the tools and the data, like we saw. You're restricted by the tools or what you can put in and get out of it, or the data's kind of holding you back. It's too big, you can't do anything, or you've got to aggregate it to a meaningless level. But now in this after Tableau world, it's kind of your imagination and creativity, which is holding you back. And that's something you can train and refine and hone, whereas you couldn't make better tools. You could kind of try and make the data better, but it's just not right. Whereas, how awesome a position is that to be in, whereas your imagination and creativity is the only roadblock? It's, for me, that's kind of fun and awesome, and that's why I've been doing these kind of jobs for so long. But equally, I want to kind of touch upon this embracing data and just kind of quickly cover about exploration. And Paul's kind of talked about it a bit with some of the data visits I've done on Tableau Public, and again, these will all be there in that link down below. But I just want to show you a few, if you haven't seen them already. And I'll quickly rattle through them. I won't labor on these, but I built a dog-ear calculator. Tableau's pretty versatile, and because it's not just dog-ear human year times 7, it depends on the breed and all that stuff. So I wanted to kind of build a tool to help people figure out a much better age for their dog. Yeah, here's the dengue fever one. I just kind of turned it into an animated GIF. But yeah, when I moved to Singapore, I kept hearing about dengue fever, and the government has a great data website which updates every week. But it was in this horrible table format, so I decided to kind of visualize it and try and make more sense of the data that way, just to see if there are any patterns or trends and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's a more serious one. Here's a silly one. This is the Game of Thrones. This is actually version 1. There's a version 2 out now, but again, I watched Game of Thrones, and you know, there's a lot of unfortunate incidents in that show, and I thought, let's try and quantify this. So I started to record and write down every fatality in Game of Thrones, and then made a dashboard to kind of make sense of that data. It's not actually up to date. I'm not sure if any of you watched the show, but I gave up. Well, I've taken a break at the end of last season because there was an event which happened and it just put me off. I was like, I can't. There's just too much, too many. But if anyone wants to help with that, I'm more than open. Also, you know, like Harry Potter visualization, which characters do what spells and how frequently over the different books. Nuclear testing data. I need to update this because North Korea's been a bit cheeky recently. But essentially it allowed me to find stuff out, like I knew nothing about nuclear testing data, but I could suddenly see, let's have a look. I could suddenly see that there was like a sort of mini hiatus here when they all sort of stopped, and then they made up for lost time. England only tested in some islands in Australia. And you know, those kind of little insights is kind of really fascinating to me because again, I wouldn't have been able to get that from, just from looking at a big table of data, which is kind of cool. This is an awesome one. I've got this on my website. This has saved my bacon a lot, and hopefully it can help make you look good too. But I built a little time-saving optimization calculator in Tableau. Again, just to show my bosses, like, hey, if you give me a week, and I'll save you like 2 years worth of work every year, and like $500,000, or well, not in this case, but I've done that in other jobs, and it just is a great way because you bake in your audience's assumptions. You fill out how long the task took, how long I can get it down to, how often it's done, frequency, all that kind of stuff. And you talk their language. You know, most companies, it's headcount and money saved. So it's just a no-brainer. But this is kind of a really awesome tool, and this takes the pain out of it. So if you do any optimizations with processes in your company, use this, and it'll help you massively to kind of show your impact and hopefully get a raise. Take a 1% commission if you use this to get a raise, but I'm joking. Okay. I follow YouTube channels, and I thought I'd try and like analyze their data and make it in a kind of interesting, accessible way. And this is the one we're going to kind of look at in a bit more detail coming up. So we'll cover that more in a second. This is the TED Talk dashboard, but I actually turned it into a video too to tell a better story. But I just page scraped every spoken word in all the TED Talks and found out what the most popular word is. You can kind of see it here, but I'm going to skip past it so you watch the video to find out. Airplane safety data. Funny enough, I only started flying in the last 5 years. So I was freaking out my first few flights, so I thought I'd get all the aviation incident data and try and make sense of it. And thankfully, I don't fly Aeroflot. And also, the airline I used wasn't in here, and I was like, wait, what's going on? This is wrong. And I was like, actually, that's a good thing. This means I haven't crashed any planes, which is good. And finally, look, I've done a stupid thing. I've animated in Tableau. There's no reason to do this. It's really stupid and dumb. Pixar isn't going to be scared of this, but essentially I wanted to see if you could animate in Tableau. So each frame is basically a kind of data set which just has grid coordinates, and they just tell which squares to appear, and I colored them, and it's just got like a page thing going on. But the more important thing here is Tableau's, like I said before, very flexible, and if you can think of something, most of the time you can actually do it in Tableau, and that's one of the awesome things about the product. You know, it's got all the bog standard, great, slick default settings, but if you want to go a bit further, Tableau allows that kind of hacky mindset to prevail, which is great. So yeah, as you can see, I've covered a ton of different data sets, all new to me, but equally I could suddenly dive in and explore and not be afraid of them and kind of master them. And I already gave you some insights on the nuclear testing data and the flying one and the TED Talks, but again, this is kind of showing the power of this stuff. And again, you'll face new data in your companies all the time, and that shouldn't be a bad thing. And I just want to, and so all this stuff I do here helps me in my business world to kind of, dust off the cobwebs and keep fresh and handle any data source which comes my way. And actually, yeah, this is the thing. Why would I do this? It's kind of like, I'm always learning. I've learned how to like factor in maps, time formatting, complex things with parameters and calculated fields. So I'm benefiting just by learning, which is kind of always a good thing. It leads to opportunities, like I guess I'm speaking here, became the first APAC Zen Master, which is kind of cool. And the TEDx thing too. So just all these things like lead to just opportunities beyond just doing a little geeky viz. It helps you grow massively in personally and your career as well. And also, as I've said, it demonstrates the kind of versatility of the Tableau product and how you can dive into data sets with kind of impunity and not be afraid of it. And more importantly, your audience, like whether it's your CMO, your boss, your manager, or your peers, empowers other people to understand data they don't know about really easily and quickly and intuitively with good visualizations. Like I'm sure when you saw some of the vizzes on the other page, I don't know, you might have been looking at certain things and you were spotting patterns. Again, you wouldn't have been able to do that in other ways or as easily, if there wasn't a good visual engine behind that stuff. So again, it's another reason why I encourage exploration with Tableau. Because that's the whole point at the end of the day as an analyst. We've got to make sure our audience understands the insights and the data. Otherwise, what's the point? It's great if we get it, but if no one else does, it's a bit pointless because you can't drive change. So yeah, let's see how we do it. So again, I'm kind of go over some high-level concepts here, like how I've used some calculated fields to handle time values, group up dimensions dynamically, choose different metrics to appear based on different parameters, action filters. If you're not familiar with those, you can do some cool stuff beyond just highlighting a few things. And there's a popular one which has been going around, how to like give a help box when you hover over like an icon. So I won't go into all the details on this. I'll just kind of show you roughly where they sit and what they do. But again, there's tutorials on the post on how to do each of these. But before I carry on, you're probably going, what the hell's a Game Grump? It's a YouTube channel which I follow. I've been following these people for a while now. And they just mix playing video games with some improvisational comedy. They've got over 5,000 videos now, 3.5 billion views. They made a great little business out of it, and it's great to see them succeed, but also it's just a good way to unwind and watch some silly stuff. So we're going to go into a live demo. So let's hope this works. I do realize the irony, my last name is Murphy, so let's hope stuff doesn't go wrong. Oh, maybe, okay. Let's try this again. Okay. Well, thankfully we have the demo or the actual dashboard in Tableau Public. Again, check it out on the website. But essentially, it's kind of a cool little thing because it has, oh, here we go. It's got a lot of different functionality, but it kind of helps make YouTube data pretty accessible. Essentially, like, right now we're looking at view count by day, by month, and each one of these is a little video. And you can quickly see, which are the most popular videos, like this one. And with action filters, I'm kind of highlighting and isolating each, where I'm selecting. If I click on this, a new video appears. So essentially, I can find an insight, but then I can go, well, what is that video? And then watch it, and then see if there are kind of qualitative patterns as well, what's driving this stuff. Because again, numbers are great, but sometimes you need those qualitative pieces of information to make sense of it. Equally, if I don't care about view count, I don't want to see what the most liked video is, you can play around with these filters. It just, rather than having data in this huge, horrible table, it suddenly makes it a lot more interesting and empowers a lot of users to view this stuff. Yeah, so let's just dive into the actual thing. And before I go on, you may have noticed a lot of my data sets are a bit gloomy. They have kind of quite morbid topics. So if you guys have any fun, nice data sets involving bunnies or kittens, send them my way because I want to kind of strike a better balance. Yeah. But essentially, I didn't put this in the final viz, but there's different ways to explore. I was just playing around, seeing what I could see, what's the best way to kind of surface some of these insights and data. There was another way when I was just trying to see, is there an increase in their production, what kind of types of show they make. And you can see here there's a marked uplift where they started making something called Steam Train and that kind of stuff. But again, I knew nothing about this data source, and I just dived in and we're building all these visuals. And I think one of the cool things I forgot to mention with this exploration thing, you're going to make a ton of bad vizzes. You're going to make pointless vizzes which don't help. But you now make them very quickly. And I often find I make 10 vizzes when I'm diving into a data set. And 9 of them are rubbish. But they've actually led me to create this one nugget of gold, which I would never have got to by being quite free and open and playing around with the data sources. So don't worry about wasting time, because in the old days that would have taken a day to make 10 visits, or half a day, and that's too much of a time investment to do that kind of stuff. Whereas now you can do it very quickly, and often find it leads to new and awesome insights. So again, dive in, play around. There's no silly outputs. Just think about what you're going to show when you present them to your boss and stuff like that. But yeah, so essentially, I won't bore you guys too much, but essentially, with the time watch by days, the raw data actually spits out the time, I think, in milliseconds, which is really unusable. It's really hard, and no one's going to be able to understand that. Like if I suddenly said to you 1,000,000 seconds, what does that mean? People are much better at grasping hours and days and years and all that stuff. So thankfully, with where is it? Total time watched. Just with a simple equation in a calculated field, I haven't touched the underlying data. I've just added a calculated field to kind of handle it, and it's just you can do it in one big equation, but I've kind of divided the seconds by 60 to get minutes, and then the minutes by 60 to get hours, and days by 24, and that kind of stuff. But I think one of the cool things about Tableau is it can handle. Let's zoom in with that. You can handle a lot more. We can just make you master your data a lot better without having to touch the raw data, which is always a bad thing. Equally with duration watch, this is a more clever one. But again, I'm not going to go into detail, but I just want to kind of show you with a simple little bit of, not simple. I kind of went on the forum to find out, but essentially, this equation kind of rounds off the seconds and then puts them into the next thing, so you get hours and minutes and days, and it's pretty clever stuff, but I won't go into this. But again, it just shows with a bit of research, you don't have to really understand this. You can just pop it in, and because you know that someone from the community has already thought of this problem and solved it for you, which is kind of cool. This is actually probably more of a useful one. You can dynamically group up, and I guess this is going to happen with Maestro, but if you don't use Maestro, this is going to be quite awesome. So with, where is it? So how many times have you guys gone into the data source, even in Tableau, and had to manually group things? Yeah, and it's a pain in the butt, right? It takes time, you might make mistakes and all this stuff. And then you know what, if the data updates, you gotta do that again. If new things creep in, and it's bad. So why not just write a little simple if statement going, if episode title contains this, call it that. Okay, now it depends, you need a good naming convention in your data, but now no longer, if new data comes in, I know that all the things which have the word animated in, I'm going to label them as Game Grumps animated. And I don't have to touch it now. I just set up a set of rules to figure this out, and I can just sit back. But I've also got an other one, so if anything falls outside of that, and new things appear, I can just go, oh, and just quickly update the thing, and that took me 1 minute instead of hours of maintaining this kind of group and list constantly. Yeah, so I've just done it for a few. I mean, most of them in the other because I haven't been that extensive, but you can quickly see, they played more Mario games than they did, or more Mario games have been viewed than Sonic the Hedgehog games. I won't go into this one too much, but essentially there's a cool little trick, and there's a tutorial on the post, where you can kind of use parameters to change dimensions and measures. So if I don't actually want to look at game title, I want to look at who the presenters are, with one parameter change, I don't have to drag and drop pills in. I can empower the user to look at the things they want in the dashboard, which is kind of cool. I don't have to build 6 different dashboards, it's just one. So if one person wants to look at presenters by watch time, great. But equally, if someone wants to look at show type by dislike, it's all in that one thing. So when you come here, okay, the filters are messed up. But you get the idea, essentially, with these kind of cool tips and techniques, you build one dashboard to service many people, which is kind of cool. I've already kind of shown you action filters, so I won't bore you. But finally, this hover icon. So say you don't want to have to write a ton of text, which takes up a ton of real estate in your dashboard, right? Explaining how to use it. So if you suddenly have here, you've got all this, with a quick drag, and as soon as you move your mouse away, it's gone, but you've only taken up a tiny bit of real estate. And that's pretty simple too. again, I won't go into it, check out the post, but essentially, if you have a little sheet where you have blank data and you just format a tooltip over the top of that, then you just have everything you need. But again, it's just showing how easy and a bit more flexible Tableau is when you dig a bit deeper and check out the forums and stuff. Chances are, if you can think of something you want to do, it can be done in Tableau. And I can't really say that for many other tools. Okay, so we're going to get into the next part, the lean dashboard, because I started to realize when I was liberated from all this kind of doing this data monkey work, like from Excel to suddenly being freed up, and I was building all these dashboards people loved and were engaged with, I started to realize I was becoming more of a UX designer. Because, look, we got to get data to insight, like turn data into insights again, but you have to remember, you've got to go through an audience. Like, who's your audience? Who are your stakeholders? And yeah, it requires a bit of user experience and design approach, because like I said at the start, if you anyone can build a dashboard, but if no one's engaging with it or using it, what's the point? So I suddenly started to go, I went to my sales director when I first got Tableau. I was like, right, boss, I've got all your data. I can make anything you want. What do you want? And he's like, Dave, I don't know what I don't know. I need you to help me figure this out. And there's this penny kind of dropped for me, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, cool, this is fun. So now it's not just, being an analyst just isn't like a technical number problem. It's now like a people problem too. And that's kind of fun because it now makes it a bit of an art and a science. So I kind of realized, when you're building dashboards, you've got to you start from the start. You've got to get to an ideal product or an ideal output people want. And most people build one thing and they're like, that's it. That's all you get. But what if it's not what they want, or it's not the final thing? Again, engagement's going to drop off. They're going to get confused, or they're going to come to you because the dashboard isn't answering the right questions they want. Which none of those things are desirable. So yeah, you'd listen to people, you'd sort of learn from that, and you'd build stuff off the back of it. But I'd encourage you to kind of, with Tableau, which now lets you rapidly iterate things, you can kind of build, learn, build, learn, build, learn in a very quick space of time, even in the same meeting. Whereas in the past, as I alluded to, that'd be a horrible, painful experience to do with other platforms. But now, this is the cool thing. Doing this, you've done it as one person or a couple of people with no huge technical investment. No need for a ton of UX designers, no need for a ton of engineers who cost a lot of money, and are detached from the audience sometimes, the end user. So you're now close to the user, and you can make the best kind of dashboard based on the live, direct feedback and observations you've made very easily and very quickly with minimal overhead, which is kind of a really exciting thing, and I can't stress the importance of this enough. But yeah, this has liberated me so much, because in the old days I'd be beholden to, a website's UI. And it'd answer most things, but as soon as you had that question it couldn't handle, it was either impossible or a massive pain to kind of figure out. So with this kind of stuff, you can just keep iterating, building very rapidly without having to worry about this stuff. And so I'll just go back very quickly. I forgot to mention this. The idea I've kind of stolen this from is this book, The Lean Starter. Very good book, definitely recommend it. It talks about basically investing the minimal amount of time to validate if something's worth doing. Or I guess I've summed up the book, you don't need to read it now. But I definitely recommend reading it still. But essentially, it's a great idea, because you don't want to double down on something if you haven't proved that it's actually what people want or what people use. So it kind of opened my eyes a bit, and it's a great book, because your time is a resource, whether it's inside or outside of work, and you want to make sure that you're not wasting it. Because I've done this before. I've been so beholden to an idea. I've got to make this dashboard. It's got to look like this. It makes total sense. And you plow tens of hours into it, or hundreds of hours, and then someone's like, oh, I don't like that, or I want this. And you're like, oh, but no, look, I did all this stuff. But so essentially, I don't want you guys to fall in that trap. If you kind of have this concept, it should help you avoid that a lot, which is always a good thing, because I don't want anyone to waste their time. So essentially, you create this win-win scenario. You leverage the full potential of your data. You're exploring these unknown unknowns, because again, if you just ask your boss what you want, they'll just say, well, I don't know, or give me what you gave me in Excel, which is potential limiting for everyone. You can answer varying complex questions very easily. Even in real time, that rapid iteration doesn't just have to be for building static dashboards you're going to distribute. It can be for in meetings. If you have the data with you and you're confident with the product, I've blown so many people away, whether it's clients or bosses' bosses. Because I'm going to create a little scenario for you. How many times have you been in a meeting where someone's asked you a question, you're presenting your insights, and someone's gone, oh, that's great. Why did that happen? And most of the time, you're like, I've seen a lot of heads nodding. Yeah, okay, it's not just me. And your answer is, I'll look into that. And it might take a week, it might take a day, but you've lost the momentum. It might not be useful anymore. Or that actually leads to another question. And then that's going to take another week or whatever. It's like snail mail with your conversation with your data. But if you suddenly have Tableau, you know, oh, what? Okay, boss, let's just dive in. And they're like, oh, great, okay, but now what's this mean? And then within like a minute or 2 minutes, you've now blown them away because you've answered their question immediately, and then the follow-up questions. And they're used to just people going, I'll get back to you. And it can't stress that enough. So it makes you look really, really good and can help in your work if you embrace that. So it's made me look good a few times, but I just want to kind of make that point. Ooh, feedback. Okay, but finally, yeah, like you made insights accessible. I've already talked about this, but that's the whole point. If your audience doesn't get it, it's all pointless. I teach data visualization at my current employer, and yeah, I've found this to be, like, we have tons of data where I work, and this is so important. Like, your audience doesn't have the time or the skill, and nor should they, to like understand complex data sets. So it's your job to make them instantly and intuitively accessible via good design, and thankfully Tableau can do that. And like I already mentioned, so I won't go into it, Tableau can help you rapidly accelerate the design process without massive overheads of people and skills and all that stuff. And sure, equally, maybe you do need to bring those guys in later, but now you can go to them with a fully functioning prototype built off real user feedback and data to then build into your end, like analytics product or whatever you might have. And engineers will love that because they can just spend time recreating that rather than trying to tease out what you want, which isn't fun. So let's kind of get towards the end. How do you get started on all this? Because it's all great. I've been talking about all these awesome things, or you've probably seen a lot of presentations, or will see a lot of talks about how awesome Tableau is, and it is. But I find sometimes there's that little missing stepping stone between like how to jump into that and get into it. So maybe some of you are already there, that's awesome, but if you have people in your team, or this could be you, here are some kind of useful resources. I kind of assume a lot of you have Tableau because you're here, but if you don't, and you can't, or the company won't spend money, Tableau Public's a great place to start. That's where I cut my teeth. That's where I kind of really started to play around and push the boundaries. It's free, and so there's no risk if no one likes your stuff. Like, and again, if you do it outside of work, then it's great. You've got no one hounding you to get like all this stuff. You can take your time. You can learn how to handle new data sets and functions and all that stuff. So Tableau Public's a great place to start. Okay, you need data to come into that. So find that data. So like, there's a lot of countries with great data websites. You can find your own, like I did with the nuclear testing data and the aviation safety data. You can make your own, like with Game of Thrones or the QI data. Yeah, it's, and then just play around. Again, there's no pressure. Just play around, see what you can see. Maybe make something awesome, put it on Tableau Public, and yeah, you might get visit a day. That was my end. That was my kind of goal for all of this. Like, make some stuff where like it's going to get Tableau visit a day, and I think I've got about 5 or 6 of them now. And it's just a kind of good buzz when you get that, and you know. But it's kind of a nice little free way to kind of encourage you to kind of look for that stuff. But also, it shows off how Tableau can distribute your workbooks very easily online. It's now no longer locked in an Excel sheet in an email with different versions. It's all there. Everyone's looking at the same thing. Everyone's on the same page. And it's nice and easy for distribution. And also, you know, get involved with your local user group. I run the local one, well, not local here. I run the local one in Singapore. But again, it's kind of like a great place because whenever I come to these Tableau conferences, I realize there's a lot of engaged people who love the same kind of things I do. And it's so invigorating to have that. And so if you kind of go to your local user group or found your own one, you'll start to sort of speak to like-minded people who have similar challenges, and you kind of help each other overcome those and just kind of geek out, which is always good. And the Tableau forums are a great place to start too. I think that's one of the kind of good, unique selling points of Tableau. If you get stuck, the forums are amazing. You Google stuff, chances are you're going to find a solution to your problem or your need in your dashboard. And if not, you can post a question up on the forum, and pretty much within a day, there'll be probably, hopefully a really good, well-written answer by one of the members of the community, because they're just so helpful and nice. And they're, kind of like me, I like helping people out, and you learn too. So I don't know many other products which have that strong, centralized community. So again, if you hit any barriers with Tableau when you get started, the forum and the communities are a great place. But just a little caveat, Tableau Public, any data set you use will be pushed online to the public, so don't use your company's data or you might get fired, so just be careful of that. That hasn't happened yet, but I always just feel like I need to call it out. Yeah. And again, let's be selfish. There's more benefits outside of just making cool vizzes, and I've kind of talked about this a little bit already, but if you embrace this, Tableau Public is a great way to kind of build out your portfolio. Either in your current job when you're going for a promotion or you're going for like other jobs as an analyst, you can kind of quickly give them a really awesome breadth of your skills and what you kind of can bring to the table and ultimately that job you're going for, which is always nice. As I said before, you learn new skills and techniques, which sure doesn't, no one cares about Harry Potter spells in your workplace, but if it suddenly helps you do dynamic grouping or figures out a problem, how to format your data, very easily, you can bring that back into your work, which is great. Increases your confidence with new data sets. Again, no longer you're afraid of new, weird data sets. You just jump in and you embrace it, which is cool. Community, again, gets you involved in community. There's a bit of emphasis there to kind of get engaged, and definitely encourage that. And it's just fun. And like I said before, it leads to opportunities where, like, I'm speaking to you here today, but also, like, I think one I was really proud of was at the Opera House in Sydney, where I got my work shown at on the big screen there at TEDx Sydney, which is kind of cool. So this is all in the presentations, don't worry about it, but like I've already said, there's a ton of great places, like go to the Tableau Public site, get inspired by Visit the Day galleries for Tableau Public, ton of great things every day being uploaded there, the best of the best. The forums, online training is also excellent. It's this little website called Data Source Rex, which is pretty cool, I hear, and a good YouTube channel. Other websites like Data Remixed, Makeover Mondays, Last Data Bender, and all the other Zen Masters. Highly encourage you to follow all of those, either their websites or Twitter. They do amazing stuff. There's a ton of different skills coming from those Zen Masters. And yeah, if you follow them, you won't be disappointed. Okay, so in wrapping up, we've kind of gone from, this before Tableau world, where your main reaction to large data sets is fear, and it's just horrible, and that's what the face I used to make every time I saw a horrible data set, into this kind of new after Tableau world where you can be creative and explore and have fun. And how many, data and fun doesn't normally go together, but it can. And I highly encourage you to kind of embrace this creative, exploratory mindset, and it'll make your job so much more fun and engaging too. Awesome, so yeah, thanks very much, guys. I'm not sure how we're doing for time. Well, if there are any, do we have time for questions? I don't know, no one's telling no. But if you do, I think there's a mic. But if not, I'll keep talking. Yeah, you've been a great audience. I'll stick around afterwards if you've got any questions or want to chat. Here are probably the best ways to keep in touch or follow what I'm doing. And yeah, you've been a great audience, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference, and I'll see you around. Oh, we have a question, sorry. Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah,
yes.
Great. So I do a lot of operations reporting, and I haven't figured out how to make those things pretty. Mm-hmm. And I wondered if you had any resources for that.
Yes, I do. Well, I don't, but there's a book I would highly encourage you to buy, which I bought. Don't worry, I'm not just plugging it. But there's a great book written by an ex-Googler, and it's called Storytelling with Data. And she outlines a ton of awesome like best practices on how to handle like design, like color, shapes, bolding, line, like all this kind of stuff. Really simple things, but really taps into your, I guess, pre-attentive attributes and like how users look at stuff, and gets you to also think about being lean with what you put on the page. Because sometimes I found a lot of people like use color or put too much pretty stuff, but it actually detracts from the visual. So this book, when it loads, really helps you understand those practices and helps like keep you on track to make very lean but elegant dashboards. I hope that helps answer your question. Or you can follow my website too, where I have some ideas too, yeah. Thank you. Cool, no other questions? Okay, well, yeah, thanks guys. I'm very easy to spot, so hopefully look up. I'll be at the data night out, so thanks again. You've been great. Thank you.